Late night on Christmas Eve 1885, in the small town of Seneca, Illinois, Matilda Rooney was alone in her kitchen when suddenly she burst into flames. Poor Matilda was incinerated, seemingly from the inside out, leaving only her feet. Her husband was also killed, suffocated from the fumes in the other room of the house. Mysteriously, no source of ignition could be found for the blaze, and the flames had not spread to the rest of the room. Investigators were baffled. It appeared that the Rooneys had fallen victim to spontaneous human combustion. Descriptions of spontaneous human combustion date back to the 17th century and continue to be reported today, though most of the instances were recorded in the 1800s. The most notorious case in fiction is in Charles Dickens' book Bleak House, where the sleazy junk merchant Mr. Crook leaves behind a heap of ashes on the floor and a dark, greasy coating on the walls and ceiling. Dickens later insisted that such a thing was possible, citing respected physicians in famous medical cases.
"I shall not abandon the facts,"
he concluded with typical Dickensian panache,
"until there shall have been a considerable spontaneous combustion of the testimony on which human occurrences are usually received."
Although the scientific support for spontaneous human combustion was weaker than Dickens stated, the public largely accepted it as a reality in his time. The victims were often alcoholic and overweight, so there was a general perception that this was retribution for a life of debauchery. After all, it made sense that a body saturated with a flammable substance, like alcohol, would become flammable. So, is spontaneous human combustion real? Should we all be afraid of bursting into flames? The answer is almost certainly no. In fact, none of the proposed scientific explanations have held up to scrutiny. Outdated medical ideas, such as the notion that ignition could be the result of an imbalance of bodily humors, are simply not true. And no, high concentrations of alcohol in the body will not make you explode. In the 20th century, forensic scientists noticed the Wick Effect, in which clothing worn by the victim can be soaked up in melted fat, acting like a wick in a candle and allowing the body to smolder for hours. This effect can produce many of the unusual signs of spontaneous human combustion, such as the nearly complete incineration of the body and the lack of fire damage to the victim's surroundings. The most likely explanation is an external source of ignition, a match, a cigarette, an electric spark, the evidence of which is destroyed by the blaze. And although alcohol doesn't make the body more flammable, impairment, like severe inebriation, may leave victims unable to react to a slowly developing fire. So, while we may never know what truly happened to the Rooneys, it's clear that the theory of spontaneous human combustion is snuffed out.